how young were you when you finished your MBBS?
I finished my MBBS in 85, so I was 22.
22. And how did that initiation or that concept of going abroad and spending a few decades there, how did that happen?
It's a very good question because when I did my pediatrics, I did from
As a clinician founder, how do you manage the business realities and also the realities of medicine? What gaps do you still see after 20 years of your journey in India?
There's a lot of gaps which we need to focus on. I can give you an example.
Tell us something about your routine, maybe your daily or how do you plan your meals?
I think that comes from my childhood. My mother always put thought process with the discipline. We used to go to school. We used to walk to...
And then outside this entire world of medicine and hospital and business, what helps you recharge? What does it take to transform how an entire country looks at childbirth and newborn care? Hi, I'm Dr. Atul and welcome to the inaugural episode of Gold Pearls, an initiative by Signutra Nutrition Institute where experience meets wisdom and every conversation brings you closer to better healthcare narratives. Now through this series, we bring you the journeys, insights and defining philosophies of leaders who are shaping the future of healthcare in India. Today, I am truly honored to host a visionary who has redefined maternal and neonatal healthcare in India. A globally trained neonatologist with decades of international experience and the founder chairman of Cloudnine group of hospitals, he has transformed the way India looks at pregnancy, childbirth and newborn care. With a strong belief that pregnancy is a state of wellness, not illness, he has built one of the most trusted healthcare ecosystems for mothers and babies in the country. It's a privilege to host and welcome Dr. Kishore Kumar to the podcast. Sir, welcome. It is an honor to have you on the show.
Thank you, Atul.
Sir, please take us back to your early days, initial journeys, your academics. How did this MBBS happen? Why did you pursue medicine?
Oh, that's a very, very interesting question. I'm the youngest in my family. We are 4 brothers and 1 sister. And I always stood first in the class. And when I did my 10th standard, we are from a place about 100 kilometers south of Bangalore. And my parents said further education is studying so well. So we came to Bangalore because my mother is from Bangalore. So okay. I joined the National College here and I stood first in PUC. Those days it's called PUC, that is year 12, for physics, chemistry, biology and mathematics. But in the languages, I lost out. Otherwise, I would have stood first in the state in the rank. So when I got highest in the PCMB, I was eligible to get both engineering and medical.
And medicine.
My passion was for both, but my preference at that time was probably engineering because engineering course had been reduced from 5 years to 4 years. Ours was the first batch. You could finish engineering in 4 years. So I got so excited. Plus, software had just commenced. This was in 78, 80. So I wanted to do software engineering and head off to America and do MS. So I went for the interview. I got my first seat in the state software seat and I joined and I came back. And I was so happy that I shared the information with my grandmother, my mother's mother.
Okay.
And my mother's grandmother said, you also becoming engineer. I said, what do you mean by you also becoming? Your mom wanted at least one of you to become a doctor. You are the youngest, so she'll be disappointed. So that made me rethink and I had not applied for medical. So I went and applied medical and I changed over my admission from engineering to medical seat purely because of that. So I keep telling my children, will you be able to do this? They said, no way, I will not change my direction just because my mother likes me or something like that. So those were the days. I think we had some sort of a different thought process as young adults and I purely joined. I didn't mind being both, but my choice was engineering obviously at that time. So that made me become a doctor.
Nice. So how young were you when you finished your MBBS?
I finished my MBBS in 85, so I was 22.
22.
22.
Wonderful, wonderful. You still miss those college days?
I missed the college days because we were talking the other day. It's nice to have aims, dreams in your life because you have a process to think about how to achieve it and what you want to achieve and things like that. Now, looking back, we have achieved all our dreams. So, unless you start planning to have few more dreams to what you want to achieve, it feels a stagnant life. So, it is definitely good to have dreams and aims which you pursue, and that sort of a life is very very rewarding. And that's why I keep telling my children that this is the golden age because you are still thinking what you want to do and what you want to achieve.
No, true. Dreams keep us chasing life, anyways. So, what was pediatrics always your calling, or your interest in newborn developed during your early days of training?
I was fascinated with the pediatric teacher whom we had when we were undergraduates, but I was also fascinated with the ophthalmology because ophthalmology was evolving at that stage with a lot of technology, and I was always interested in technology. So I was most interested in either ophthalmology or pediatrics, and pediatrics seemed to be the my first choice. And because I got pediatrics was the first choice, and I didn't turn back. Otherwise, I would have probably become an ophthalmologist.
And how did that initiation or that concept of going abroad and spending a few decades there, how did that happen?
That's a very good question because when I did my pediatrics, I did from JJM Medical College in Davangere, and probably at that time that was the best department of pediatrics in the whole state. And we had Professor Nirmala Kesari. She was the highest qualified pediatrician with qualifications from India, UK, and USA, but she still managed to come back and wanted to do different things in India. Then we had a very big teacher called Dr. M.L. Kulkarni. He's still quite active academically, and he was one of the best teachers we've ever had. So we learned a lot of pediatrics, but at that time, what happened is my post-graduation period was from 86 to 89. During that time, the neonatal intensive care had started in a very big way in the Western world. We still didn't have intensive care here, and we still had a lot of mortality and morbidity. We used to lose at least 56 babies out of every 1,000 babies born in India, which was very high. And the whole Western world had a neonatal mortality, we call it as infant mortality in single digits. So I felt that we are lagging behind and we are not trained enough. And neonatology training was not there in India. So that's what attracted me to go abroad. And I wanted to train myself as a neonatologist and come back.
So yes, you became the youngest one of the youngest global neonatologist with a very high qualifications that time. So maybe the environment in India and the environment globally inspired you to chase this pursuit of excellence to be a neonatologist to the level you are. Wonderful journey, sir. Any defining moment during your early days which you still chase even after 20-25 years?
Yeah, that's a very important question because after I finished my MD as a pediatrician, those days going abroad was not that easy. So we had to. There was no internet, so there was no STD calls, and we had to apply for going to UK, and so the whole process would have taken about 6 months to 1 year. And that time, I worked in Mysore in a small hospital called Mission Hospital. The name Holdsworth Memorial Hospital, but popularly known as Mission Hospital, where we saved a baby who was weighing 980 grams. And that was the smallest baby, 780 grams, not 780 grams. And that was the smallest baby who had been saved at that time in India.
To ever survive in India.
Ever survive in India. So suddenly, overnight, I realized my name was splashed around all the media saying that Dr. Kishore has saved this baby, the smallest in India. I had insecurity within myself because I didn't know whether the baby had survived baby by itself, or did my effort make the baby survive. So if somebody had asked me, oh, you have saved 780 grams, can you save another baby 780 grams? I didn't have the confidence, nor I had the means at that time. So now I can confidently say the smallest we have saved in Cloudnine is about 390 grams. And in Jayanagar, where I work full time, we saved 440 grams, is the smallest baby. If somebody asks me, can you save another baby who's 450 grams, we'll definitely say yes. So that confidence and technology and training and other things is what we achieved when we went abroad.
And sir, tell me something about the times which you have spent, I think nearly 2 decades of your experience in US, UK and Australia. How has this global exposure shaped your clinical philosophy? And you are applying it now back in India.
That's a brilliant question, which now not many people think about it. When I went to England, I realized that going to work in England is not as smooth as one may think. We had to pass an exam called a PLAB, which is Professional Linguistic Assessment Board exam. And that exam was a tough exam because the pass percentage was only 6%. So we passed the exam, and after that, we get a letter from the General Medical Council England, which registers all the doctors, saying that you are equivalent to a British graduate. Now you can work in British hospitals. But after passing the PLAB, when we applied for the job, I got a job, first job. I've always wanted to work in London. So I got my first job in London, which was next to Heathrow. And I loved the job. But after 6 months, I felt it was a routine pediatric job, and I had done my MD here. I wanted to be specialized pediatrics. That's where I had gone there. So I applied for what we call as a recognized specialist training course. And that took me to teaching hospitals in UK.
Okay.
And once you sign up for that, it's a minimum of 2 years training at that time. So I had to rotate through different specialties, hematology, neonatal surgery, pulmonology, oncology, nephrology, endocrinology. Though in theory we had done those specialties in India, the training in the UK in the teaching hospital was totally different. We had not seen any baby surviving surgery in India those days. And we were seeing 1,000 grams babies, 1,500 grams baby being operated and doing well in neonatal surgery. When we worked in hematology, we saw babies with hemophilia, we saw all sorts of cancers. So the teaching hospitals gave real exposure to the theory what we had learned without seeing the cases. And that made us more and more confident. And after that, when I officially graduated with the MRCP and also the teaching hospitals, I was eligible to become a consultant. And when I became a consultant in UK, in Liverpool, I was one of the youngest consultants at that time, being an Indian origin. And the training what they gave for consultants was entirely different. You are allowed you are allowed to train yourself to medico-legal cases only by invitation.
Okay.
Nobody can apply for this course. So we were invited for a 10-day course conducted by Queen's Counsels to how to handle medico-legal cases, how to become a good administrator, consultant. Because once you become a consultant, you start getting involved in the administration. So that training of 10 days really opened up my eyes. And I really thought, why? Why don't we have this sort of training in India? And it opened our eyes in a big way. But after 6 months in UK as a consultant, for me, academics was quite passionate, and I had gone there to train myself. So my feet became itchy in the sense I had to head back. I can't be staying here. I've come for a purpose. So one of the conferences I was presenting a paper in London, I got offered a job in Melbourne by Professor Victor Yu. And I said, wow, I didn't realize you can work in Australia, because I was fascinated by kangaroos and Australia, but I never thought I can go to Australia. And he said, no, you're well qualified, you come here. So I got a job and I went to Australia and I fell in love with that country. But those days, the doctors were not welcomed with the red carpet. But Melbourne Monash Medical Center, where I trained, was much more advanced than many hospitals in the UK and US at that time, because they were saving babies who were premature at 24 to 28 weeks. UK was not saving at that time 28 weeks and less. So one full year of training in Monash Medical Center made me an expert in saving babies who were very, very premature between 24 and 28 weeks. So after that, because I had fallen in love and I wanted to work one more year, I took a job in Sydney. But this time I wanted to work in cardiac intensive care center, because that's one specialty which I had not worked, and I was probably nervous if I had a baby with the post cardiac surgery who came to me. So I worked in Sydney Children's Hospital and got the exposure to post cardiac surgery in the pediatric intensive care and all that. And then I wanted to work for 6 months in just flying around the country, retrieving sick babies, because bringing sick babies to one hospital to other hospital requires a lot of expertise. You need to be more confident handling emergencies up in the air. And Sydney had an opportunity like that. So I worked for 6 months under the service called NETS, which was Newborn Emergency Transport Service, fetching babies all over the state from one hospital to other hospital. And because Australia has a centralized neonatal services, so peripheries, if they have a sick baby, we bring them to Sydney. So that gave 100% confidence to handle any emergencies which we can have. At the end of 2 years, Australian immigration was very strict, and they gave me a letter saying that you have finished your free visa, you have to leave the country.
Okay. Yeah, after 1 year.
After 2 years.
After 2 years.
1 year in Melbourne, 1 year in Sydney.
Yes.
I had passed my USMLE, so I wanted to see 1 year in America and head back to India. So that was the thought process I had. So I went to US to work in Los Angeles. I worked there for 3 months, Los Angeles Children's Hospital, during which time I got a call. That time, the Sydney consultant called me and said, there is a job going on in Tasmania and you're ideally suited. We want you to come back. And I said, visa is not there. He said, don't worry about the visa. We'll sort it out. And so I was actually offered a job by the government of Australia to come to Tasmania to set up a pilot project, which has become a law now, to set up what is called as a rural medical school with the hub and spoke model of students going from cities to work in rural areas for 1 year, to see whether that can be implemented in the whole country, because they were running a shortage of doctors in rural areas at that time.
Okay.
And initially I was reluctant, but when they gave me free ticket business class Los Angeles to Tasmania in Qantas, I was only 30 odd years, and I was like, even if I don't take the job, I'll have a business class flight. So that's how I came by. And I saw the job, and it was very appealing, because there were only 2 people involved in that, myself and Professor Alan Carmichael. Professor Alan Carmichael died recently, but we were the only 2 involved in establishing this pilot project. So I loved it. So I took up the job as a challenge, but they wanted me to sign a contract for 5 years. And I said, no, I can't be signing the contract for 5 years. I have to go back to India. And so finally we agreed, we signed the contract for 3 years. And I was happy to leave Los Angeles after 3 months, because I liked US as a country, but working there for 3 months was enough. I could see the drawbacks and various issues with the medical service. It's more of a legalistic medicine rather than clinical medicine. It was not any more advanced than what it was in Australia. So I came back to Tasmania, did the job for 3 years. It was very, very successful. Now it has become a government of Australia policy implemented all across. But after 3 years there, I felt a little bit itchy. I wanted to work for 1 more year in neonatal intensive care proper before I come back. So I took a job in Perth. Okay. And that probably delayed my coming back. Because what happened is, wherever I went, I got a challenge. All the neonatal intensive cares in Australia and the UK are all governmentally funded. There, we got an opportunity to establish a private NICU funded by Notre Dame University from Notre Dame itself. And it was too much of a challenge to miss. So we took the challenge, and there were only two of us were interested with the job. Professor Alfred Grog and myself. So we established a private NICU, and it became so popular that many of our clients are still VIPs in various fields, including Justin Langer, Adam Gilchrist. They were all my clients. So we established a most powerful private NICU in Perth, in Australia, which is even today running successfully. And that's how my career in the West shaped my whole career. And after a few years in Perth, we became emotional because one day, the talks keep happening in the families, and my dad was getting old, my in-laws were getting old, both me and my wife were the youngest in the family. They all said, how many more years? And then we said, well, we'll come back. We tried to come and explore job opportunities here. None of the hospitals were willing to spend money to save babies who are premature here at that time. And that's when my wife said, why don't we start our own hospital? So it was purely, we started for two reasons. One is I wanted to work the way I've been trained to save premature babies, less than 28 weeks, because in India, even today, the viability is defined as 28 weeks. People don't save 28 weeks and below, and I wanted to. Second thing is maternal mortality was too high. So we wanted to establish a quality care mother and baby center, and that's how we started Cloudnine.
Oh, such an exciting journey you've had. I mean, you have traveled most of the world. The kind of experiences you have gathered, I mean, people take multiple lives to live that. And wonderfully said, sir. I mean, if you want to become confident in something, you need to get exposed to that as much as possible. And that's a brilliant learning. Now, you have traveled most of the world, sir, from London to Australia to US, and then you have spent time and you have had exposures to some of the most advanced neonatal care centers globally, most developed economies and institutes and infrastructures. Now, I'm talking about 35 years back when you looked from US or America or London to India back. What were some of these gaps in maternal health and infant health which almost inspired you to come back and do something?
Yeah, when I left India, what it was, and after 15 years of me being abroad, the level of intensive care for newborns, level of care for maternity had not changed here. In 2006, when we started Cloudnine, the infant mortality was still about 36 per 100,000 live births, and maternal mortality in private sector was about 39 per 100,000 pregnant women. And in public, it was 135 per 100,000. So we wanted to change that. And one of the ways we wanted to change is I didn't want to look what is lacunae here. We wanted to establish whatever the best the world can offer. And that's how we started Cloudnine. So we had protocols, policies, everything designed by our experience to make sure that we provided 24/7 the care. Now, if you look at even today, we are the only hospital where we don't have junior doctors. We have pediatricians, we have obstetricians, and anesthetists round the clock.
Okay.
The reason being very simple. If you have an emergency, the world dictates that you need to deliver the baby within 20 minutes. And when you look at the way things were happening before 2006 when we opened, the obstetricians used to be at home, pediatricians used to be at home. If there's an emergency, the receptionist will call you, there's an emergency, please come deliver.
It will take hours.
It will take minimum 45 minutes. That's too late according to international standards. So what we did is we had obstetricians, pediatricians, and anesthetists round the clock based in the hospital with just that simple philosophy plus our protocols wanting to save less than 28 weeks. We became instantly popular. Because what happened is within the first year, there were at least 6 instances where I can recall we would have lost the mother if there was a delay. And we had saved 3 babies less than 800 grams who had been refused admission to various multi-speciality hospitals because they were not 28 weeks. And they said, your baby won't survive. So we saved those babies and they became brand ambassadors for us. At that time, there was not much of social media except for Facebook. And these mothers went on Facebook talking about how we saved our babies at less than 800 grams. And 6 mothers who would have otherwise been gone started talking about how their life changed because we were there at the emergency and saved their life. And people started talking about it. And today, I am proud to say that first 10 years, we didn't lose any mother. We had 0% maternal mortality. Now we are 19 years completed. We have done 300,000 deliveries. We have lost only 5 mothers so far. And those 5 mothers are also due to some cardiac conditions, heart problems. So what we did is we analyze our results and we do a lot of research. And with the obstetricians, we looked at these 5 days and we said, how can we avoid this? And all the 5 happened because of the heart problem. So now we are the only hospital in the world where we assess the heart condition of the mother at around 28, 30 weeks. If there is a high risk probability, we have criteria. We assess the heart of the mother by the cardiologist and echo to see if we can do even that 5 mothers we can save. So technically, we are the lowest maternal mortality in the world. And that I can confidently say because we are the only Asian chain of hospitals who are part of Vermont Oxford network. And we are the lowest maternal mortality in the world, highest survival chance of the babies. All that because of the learnings we had from the world and the protocols we put in and 24/7 capability to handle emergencies. And that has provided the quality care. That's what made the brand within 3 years of starting, not because of anything else.
Now, you chose to came back to India when the realities in terms of maternal space or neonatal space was very far from ideal. So that did that decision of starting Cloudnine happen when you were outside India or when you came back and then you realized you need to do something about it? Did it accidentally happen one fine day sitting with your colleagues, or it was a slow, gradual decision in making?
It was a gradual decision of nearly a year and a half because initially I wanted to come and work in one of the established hospitals, but they were not willing to spend money on the neonatal intensive care. So we wanted to create our own hospital, and once we decided to own a hospital, then went through the process of where do we get the money from? Because in 2006 to open the hospital, which we had thought of the levels we would wanted, we needed 20 crores. Though I had worked for quite a number of years abroad, with all the savings I had, I could maximum recruit about 3 crores with the support of my family and friends. So I still needed another 17 crores. So we needed angel investors. Getting the angel investors, starting the hospital was a big thing. And once we started the hospital, then comes the various other problems. The infrastructure, the architects were not used to the level of quality we wanted, and that we needed to supervise. Then comes the human element. The nurses, doctors needed to be oriented to the level we wanted. When we started, we realized that India, every doctor considers themselves as God, patients consider them as God, and no doctors can ever do any mistakes. So for us to correct the doctors was a big thing. We had to terminate 2 or 3 senior doctors because they were very good orators, but not with the surgical skills.
Okay.
And that led to a lot of bad blood and difficult decisions. So there was a lot of learning. So the nurses didn't know how to record blood pressure, but they are qualified as nurses. So we had to put every nurse whom we recruited to the training. Then we had to train the receptionists also to start from the scratch, because what we realized is pregnancy is a wellness. It's not an illness. People become pregnant because you want to enjoy your life with the family. And when you are well, when you come to a hospital, you expect everybody to be smiling and handling. When you are sick, you go to the hospital, somebody is grumpy, you don't have the space in your mind to bother about such things. But when you're well, if somebody is grumpy, that puts you off. So we needed to train the reception people to be smiling all the time. So we had to record their performance and say, look, if you were to be you, if you go and they treat you like this, would you go to the hospital again? So it was a training all around for every level, starting from security to housekeeping to GREs to nurses to doctors. It was a mindset. And then comes the training of the doctors to cope with the current generation, because at that time we had a lot of senior doctors who did not know how to handle the Generation Z or millennials, because their expectations is totally different. So we had to train them to that extent also. So it was a comprehensive training other than just the medical bit. So it took a lot of effort, and it also took a lot of toll, because we were not a brand when we started. So it nearly took 3 years to break even. And during that 3 years, the angel investors got restless and they said, why are we doing mother and baby alone? We should do multi-speciality. We'll
Healthcare
get more
requires
income.
time to build.
Exactly.
Yes.
And they started asking for dividends. So that was not an easy time. But we persisted, and I'm glad we persisted. And now we have 46 branches all over the India, in 14 cities, and we are still growing fast.
So your first center in Jayanagar, Bangalore in 2006, and now 46th in the country over the last 20 years. I think when you look back now, your each and every bits of experience abroad has juggled you to where you are today, and your attention to detail in terms of thinking how should even a nurse approach a newborn or maybe a parent or a mother. It's mind-boggling. Sitting with a true visionary. Sir, how do you, as a clinician founder, how do you manage the business realities and also the realities of medicine? Because when you started at that pace of time, you were already a evolved clinician, and then being a businessman, entrepreneur. So how do you mix and match both these?
I used to compartmentalize. So when I did my clinical bit, I used to do in the morning, from morning 8 to 10. Then from 10 to 4, I used to do administration, during which my colleague used to cover the hospital. Then evening, I used to do the outpatients. And so I totally compartmentalized that time, and I was available for whatever is needed. And in that sense, I could handle everything. Even today, I keep telling people that I wear 5 hats.
Yes.
One is I'm a father and a family man. One is an academician. I'm a researcher. I'm an entrepreneur. Plus, I'm a teacher. So, and I used to go to Indira Gandhi Children's Hospital in Bangalore once a week on Fridays to teach the postgraduate students there, to keep my desire to teach. And then I was teaching online to Notre Dame students in Perth. So I kept everything alive by putting the slots and dedicating time for each and everything.
Now I'll come back to this. You wearing 5 hats and so perfectly and absolutely managing all of that. I'll come to that because that is something I'm very much interested to. But sir, as you said, you have managed in India extremely premature and high risk cases. You just told that many babies who were less than 800 grams and now less than 400 grams have been managed and saved. Uh, is there any role or criticality of nutrition also during pregnancy or during infancy, which determines the long-term outcomes?
Absolutely. That was spot on. Fantastic question. A lot of people don't realize the nutrition during pregnancy is very, very, very important. In fact, We have learned a lot from the Dutch famine in World War II, where people have shown that if a pregnant woman suffers from undernutrition or no proper nutrition in the first trimester, the baby is born will develop so many particular diseases, including cardiovascular disease, schizophrenia, and various other problems. If a mother becomes deficient in nutrition in the second trimester, the diseases what you get is totally different. If a mother becomes deficient in nutrition in the third trimester, then you get totally different problems. So the nutrition during pregnancy is important. Nutrition before you become pregnant is important, because we all know for the last 50 years that if a lady who wants to become pregnant is deficient in folic acid in her diet, her chances of getting neural tube defects like spina bifida increases by more than 100%. And that's why the folic acid supplementation came for mothers or women who wants to conceive. So there's enough data to show that nutrition before a woman becomes pregnant is important, during pregnancy is important, and once the baby is born, we call it as the first 1,000 days, which means that the pregnancy to 80 days, then the first 2 years of life will determine what you become. And the first 1,000 days of nutrition will determine what you are going to become, whether you're becoming a doctor or a politician, or what you become is determined by your nutrition, which your mother has taught. So technically, what you become, the credit goes to your mother, not you. In other words, if you look at a baby at birth, the head circumference of a baby is only 35 centimeters. Adult head circumference is about 54, 55. But the head circumference of a baby at the age of 2 years is 50. What it means is 90% of your head growth happens in the first 2 years. So if your nutrition is not up to the mark, then you are never going to recover. So the first 2 years of nutrition is very important. So if a baby is born premature, it's all the more important that we take care of the nutrition, because premature babies don't know what to eat and how to eat and what not to eat. So premature baby nutrition is the responsibility of a neonatologist, whereas a baby born at birth is the responsibility of a pediatrician and a mother. And criticality of nutrition in premature babies is much more critical than what anybody can think. So nutrition plays a role in before pregnancy, during pregnancy, first 2 years of childhood, and premature babies. It's highly, highly important, and each area needs expertise.
Now, in the process of making of a doctor, I'm talking about the first 4.5 years of MBBS. At your time, was nutrition given proper emphasis in the MBBS curriculum?
It was given, but it was more of a macronutrient thought process, because at that time in India, I'm glad we have progressed, because many people may not realize when we did our MBBS, we used to see a lot of children with the marasmus and kwashiorkor, which is a protein energy malnutrition. And protein energy malnutrition, books and books have been written in various people. And we used to see what we now look at the television and look at in Syria or in war-torn areas like Gaza or Africa, malnourished children. We used to see that in India. Mm-hmm. We don't see that now. But macronutrient deficiency was so high. So protein energy malnutrition was what we catered for. Whereas now we have progressed in a different way. We see two kinds of nutrition. One is a malnutrition, MAL. The second one is a malnutrition with a MALL. So both kind of nutrition deficiencies and affecting individuals is very, very high. In other words, macronutrient deficiency and micronutrient deficiencies affecting the health is extremely, extremely important.
Because I still remember, I was MBBS grad from 2005 to 2010. We had some curriculum up talking about macro and micronutrition, but given the length and the stress of MBBS, some things are tend to be ignored, and I think nutrition was the first thing to be ignored at that time. But given the criticality and credibility of now nutrition has Do you see the role of pediatrician is and clinical pediatrics is changing from just treating the babies to also use nutrition as some preventive approach for the long-term development of the kids?
Absolutely. See, the responsibility of the pediatricians these days is much higher compared to responsibility of pediatricians in the past. The reason being, in the past, the parents or the so-called young parents were guided by extended families, grandparents, whereas nuclear families are becoming a norm now, and working mothers are becoming a norm. So breastfeeding for the first 6 months is very, very crucial for the babies. After 6 months, when you wean the babies into solid foods, the knowledge and attitude and practices, which are we call a KAPs, of the mother determines what you are going to be given. And unfortunately, these days, mothers dependent on social media or on advertisements rather than any senior guiding.
True.
I'll give you one example. A lot of mothers who come to see me, they say, "Doctor, can I give oats?" And I said, "Have you seen oats?" "No." "Have you eaten oats?" "No." "Why are you asking them?" "Oh, I saw in the TV and it's ready-madely available and you can give it to the baby whenever you want. I don't have to prepare." So they're looking at easy methods without realizing how important it is. So I keep telling them, talk to your mother and give homemade or your specialty diets rather than anything else. And you have to look at protein, iron, carbohydrates and fats, all these things rather than just giving oats.
True.
When I tell that, they look at me and say, what is protein? What is carbohydrate? So the responsibility of a pediatrician nowadays to educate the young mothers who are nuclear families is much more important, and giving them written instructions for following is much more important, and guiding them what to give them, what not to give them is much higher. Otherwise, the babies are going to be the sufferers because the mothers thinks it's easy to give oats to the babies. And once they start giving oats, they give oats for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and because it's easy. So that's why the ready-made foods are what we call ultra-processed foods.
Ultra-processed foods
Is a bad thing for children under the age of 2 years. It's bad for everybody, but especially bad for children under the age of 2 years.
This is basically what is shown everywhere. Google, and this is the age of Facebooks and Instagrams, the age
Absolutely.
of influencers. So this is what they show, and this is what the people learn.
Yeah.
But I want to repeat one question, sir, but the perspectives are different. One question was when you started this concept of Cloudnine, there were some gaps in the maternal mortalities, infant mortalities are very, very high. Now, in the past journey of 20 years, you have evolved from one center to 46 centers, and you have just shared the evolution, how you are still uh, trying to reduce the gaps in your institute. But from a point of view of country, India, has India evolved in terms of managing these big gaps? What gaps do you still see after 20 years of your journey in India?
There's a lot of gaps which we need to focus on. I can give you one more example. Say, for example, from day one, we started doing newborn screening for all babies born in Cloudnine. Newborn screening is a blood test to identify any enzymatic or metabolic problem in a baby. And there are about 50 diseases which you can screen babies at birth, which are not clinically apparent. So if somebody asks me, when I look at a baby, if you say, can you tell me this baby is normal? And I always tell the obstetricians, I can't tell your baby is normal and don't do tubectomy when they come for delivery, because babies can have cardiological problems, metabolical problems, enzymatical problems, which are not obvious clinically. Clinically, there's a limitation how much a pediatrician can look at. And newborn screening has been there in the world for the last 60 years. The best example we can give is a hypothyroidism, that is underactive thyroid, which is not picked up clinically unless the baby becomes hypothyroid. So the whole idea is to diagnose before the baby becomes hypothyroid. And as of today, the National Neonatology Forum in India maintains records to show that 26,000 babies are born every year in India who become mentally retarded by 1 month of age because they're born with the congenital hypothyroidism. So similarly, by doing the newborn screening, what we found was 4% of our babies were showing positive tests for what we call as a methylmalonic acidemia.
Okay.
Now, if the baby were to have methylmalonic acidemia, the baby will develop neurological problems by the age of 1 year. And we as postgraduates in pediatrics have studied about infantile tremor syndrome, various forms of convulsions attributed to vitamin B12 deficiency. And they were all presenting at the age of 6 months, 1 year, 2 years and all. What we found, because we were started screening, 4% of our babies were having methylmalonic acidemia due to deficiency of B12 in the mother.
Okay.
I talked about folic acid in the mother, but yes. B12 is ignored. When you give folic acid, B12 deficiency can be exaggerated. So over the last 10 years, what we have done is we educate the mothers the importance of B12. And suddenly, if that 4% of mothers having B12 deficiency, we have eliminated that. In other words, 4% of babies developing neurological problems at the age of 1 or 2 years, we are preventing in Cloudnine through dietary intervention of pregnant mothers. I'm just giving you one example. So there are lots of learning like that because we have been doing newborn screening and we have identified so many micronutrient deficiencies which can be handled at the pregnancy and nutrition level and also infancy level. And that's still not being practiced in whole of India. So there is a lot of things we have to do all over India before we can say we have reached satisfactory level.
Now I would want to talk about the art of balancing, and I think you are a true champion in that. I'm talking about Dr. Kishore Kumar, who is an academician, a clinician, a researcher, an entrepreneur, and a family man. So how do you balance all these things so perfectly?
When I was a postgraduate, I used to see one of my close friends' father, who was a very, very big pediatrician. But he always felt the lacunae, my friend. He said, my dad is never available. He's always busy with academics and conferences. I used to think, I don't want to do that mistake. I don't want my children to feel that I'm never available. So be it my children's school graduation or any functions, I always made sure well in advance I took time off and spent. So even today, my son, when he became a doctor and is practicing in Perth, and he says, Papa, how did you manage? You are always available. So that is the confidence I have given them. I was always available for them whenever I'm needed in the family. And we always took at least 2 holidays in a year to spend quality time with the family. So as I said, I compartmentalized whatever I needed to do. So I had a time for family, I had a time for academics, I had time for clinical commitment, and I had time for research. I'm not the person who sits and says, thank God it's Friday. If I am in the mood, I will work on Saturday and Sunday when nobody is around, because that's the time, free time is available. Or I spend quality time with the family on Saturday, Sunday, like that. So I adjust according to the needs rather than anything else. And that's how I balanced all the 4 fields or 5 fields.
But I think to be able to perform in all these hats which you are wearing, it would require a strict discipline. It would require a strict pattern or routine. So tell us something about your routine, maybe your daily, or how do you plan your weeks?
I think that comes from my childhood. My mother always put thought process with the discipline. We used to go to school. We used to walk to school, which was 2.5 kilometers every day, come back. By 5 o'clock, we used to reach home. My mother used to say, wash your hands and legs, go and play. She allowed us to play. We used to play on the streets with all the friends in the street. But by 7, she had a very strict rule that we had to come back, wash our legs and hands again because we would have been dirty with the playing. From 7 to 9, we were supposed to sit and study. And 9 o'clock, my dad used to come and we all had dinner together and we used to sleep by 10. So the regimen of compartmentalizing and doing things was instilled when we were children, and that continued. When I came to Bangalore to study in year 11 and year 12, I stayed in Ramakrishna Ashrama. Again, there, they had a very disciplined life. We had a prayer between morning 5:30 and 6. 6 to 6:30 was general time for mixing, reading newspapers, doing whatever. 6:30 to 7:30 is breakfast. And after 7:30, you get ready to go to the college and you go to college at 9. So we had a disciplined life. And every Sunday, we were supposed to clean our own toilets, wash our own clothes, and get ready for Monday. And so a structured life has been there from childhood, and it can't come all of a sudden when you're an adult. So our mind was programmed in that way. We had programs or compartment for each things at a different time of the day. So it continued, and that's why it's much easier for me to follow.
Now, I mean, in this world of so many things happening in India and globally and in the families, those people who would be watching this podcast and some Gen Zs who choose to become visionary leaders, there's something to learn from Dr. Kishore Kumar. That is discipline. And without discipline, I think if you manage one thing, something would be at the cost of it.
No, that's why I keep telling you can't have the thought process as like, thank God it's Friday.
Yes.
Because suddenly, if you get an idea on Saturday, you can't say, no, I don't want to work on that idea today. Let me sleep. That doesn't work if you're an entrepreneur or an academician. If you get a thought process, you work on that thought process and finish it. So thank God Friday is not a good job.
And then outside this entire world of medicine and hospital and business, what helps you recharge?
Holidays and watching movies and reading few things. Music is something which I am very, very passionate. I listen to all sorts of music.
I remember one speech of Steve Jobs. He was making a speech, I think, at this Stanford University. And one element was only when you look back, you can connect the dots. So when you look back your journey of the last, I think, 30, 40 years, what has been the most fulfilling moment in your life?
The fulfilling moment is when my dad used to tell me, I always said my son is doing extremely well in Australia. And his friends used to say, my son is in America, my son is in England. But once I came back and started Cloudnine, he said, this is what I wanted. And he said, now I tell people, I am the father of Dr. Kishore who wears Cloudnine. And that was a fulfilling moment for me because I felt I fulfilled my dad's dreams.
Now, like I said, sir, the kind of life you have lived and built for yourself and for billions around, it sometimes requires multiple lives for people to live what you have lived in one life. What's next? What are the plans for the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years?
Yeah, the plans are that we are there only in 14 cities around India. We still have a lot of changes to make in India. As I mentioned quite a few things in the last few minutes, there are lots of things which we need to do in India, and including the public sector. And public sector is still not up to the mark, though they are learning from us. And the discrepancy between public and private maternal and neonatal care is so grossly different. The government has started acting on it, and now the care in public sector is getting better and better. And there is definitely a long way to go. And we are trying to help that also by having a dialogue with the government and trying to make public-private partnership.
So now we'll be moving to the last part of the podcast, and it has been wonderful conversations with you for the entire journey you have had. If I ask you to leave behind one golden pearl of wisdom for the budding pediatricians and neonatologists, what would be those 2, 3 points which people younger to me who are trying to be healthcare entrepreneurs, or maybe they're trying to be good clinicians and researchers, what are those 2 3 points they can't afford to lose?
Yeah, that's a very good question. In fact, I keep telling the young budding pediatricians, see, when you qualify as a pediatrician, the first thing most of us will be wondering is, I need to earn money. Between 30 and 40, every pediatrician wants to earn money. Between 40 and 50, every pediatrician wants to be a guest speaker in an international conference or a conference, and other things and desires are there. And the third thing which happens is between 30 and 50, because they're torn between earning money and earning name for themselves and academic name, they forget the family. And I've seen people practicing until 11 o'clock in the night, and I say, when do you see family? Oh, I see them on the weekend. The family forgets who you are. They'll say, Mummy, there's a man at the door. There's a joke. So if you practice day in and day out and don't spend quality time with your kids, the kids don't realize that you are there for them. So don't try to kill yourself. Have a balanced life, and money will come eventually. And you don't realize that you become rich by just keep working. Don't expect any returns. Academicity and other things happen as you continuously do clinical research. Do your work, and as the Bhagavad Gita says, don't expect returns. Just do your work and be principled in life. All the returns come to you what you deserve. And definitely don't have the attitude that, thank God it's Friday. So these three principles, one is being part of your family and not worrying about wanting to earn money and wanting to make a name, and working with sincerity will take you long way. And that's how you become a leader and you become a moral guide for the rest of the community.
So that's pure gold, sir, from you. I mean, ultimately, what matters is the peace of mind, and happiness is the most important thing, which keeps you balanced. And then you can do whatever you want to do and plan in your life. Now, sir, I'll shoot some rapid fires on you.
Sure.
And whatever comes to your mind instantly, I would
Sure.
be looking for that. So, one word that defines neonatology for you.
Neonatologist is the bread and butter for me.
India or global healthcare? What excites you today more?
Both excites me. India in a different way because you can make a lot of difference. And India, I'm very proud because we provide quality care at a fraction of the cost of the developed world. But we still have a long way to go in India because there's not much of research
True.
done here. We are still dependent on various researchers done abroad. And it's high time that we focus on our research and do the things required for our population than dependent on them.
Dr. Kishore Kumar, the clinician, or Dr. Kishore Kumar, the entrepreneur? Who are you most proud of?
I'm more proud of as a clinician because the happiness which you get when you save a 24-weeker with no disability, which is we call intact survival, that's unmatching, and nothing can beat that.
And out of these two challenging things, which challenges you more? Clinicians, as a clinician, or as an entrepreneur? Which is more challenging?
I think being an entrepreneur is more challenging because a clinician comes in your blood, whereas entrepreneurship needs a lot of effort, conscious and unconscious.
So you told that, thank God it's not Friday, it's not of your cup of tea, but are you a morning person or a late night person?
I'm typically a morning person, but I can be late night also. I'm very flexible, but at the end of the day, I'm a person who needs good sleep. And in fact, both my parents and my family are surprised because I can go without sleep for 3 days in a row. At the same time, I can sleep for 24 to 36 hours non-stop. So my capacity to stay sleepless and sleep for a long time, both are there.
So books or real life experiences, which shaped you more?
I think real life experiences shaped me more than books.
Any particular book, maybe medical or non-medical, which has influenced you very, very deeply?
There are lots of books which has influenced me, and when I was young, probably books on Vivekananda influenced me. But lately, I read a book called How Doctors Think.
How Doctors Think.
And that by Robert Gropman gives you an insight of what things go on in your mind as a doctor, and that's a fascinating book. I think every doctor has to read.
Any myth or taboo which you want to break in the sphere of neonatology in India?
When I started Cloudnine, everybody said premature babies are not going to pay because most parents will think that it's easier to have a second baby rather than paying for a premature baby. And I said, okay, let me try. But that's false and that's a myth. Every parent wants their child to survive. Doesn't matter how premature or how big the baby it is, but they want the baby to survive and they're ready to spend. And no parent ever wants to give up their babies. So that's a myth in neonatology that people don't pay. They go out of the way to pay for the babies to make them healthier.
Music helps you unwind?
Yes, music is my passion and I listen to all sorts of music.
All sorts of music. Now, we already answered this question at the beginning of the podcast. Before you ever thinking of becoming a doctor, you had already taken the first step to become an engineer. Now, if I ask you today, if not a doctor, what would you have been?
If I was not a doctor, it's very hard to imagine myself not being a doctor now that I'm a doctor, because I think I had a fruitful life. So I think I'm glad I became a doctor. Now I can't think of anything else other than a doctor.
Now, you have traveled the globe for more than half of your life. City life or silent weekends? What excites you more?
I'm a city person, and I don't think I can live in a small place. But at the same time, I enjoy calmness and solitude. So I do enjoy going to resorts and recharging batteries like that. But yeah, city life is more important.
As a last question, one thing, one value which you have never compromised upon?
I have never compromised on the principles of medical care. I have not provided the care to any baby based on whether they can afford or not afford. And I've never ordered investigations if they're not required for any baby. So if I order investigations or order admission for a baby, that means they really need it. And all my staff who are working with me can vouch for that. And that's something which I'm very, very proud of.
Wonderful. I would have really wished we could have kept this conversation going as long as possible. But so thank you so much, sir, for sharing your valuable insights, the journey which you have had, your vision and philosophy, and sharing some absolute golds of wisdom, which would be, I think, very, very valuable for people who would be watching this, people who want to become doctors, people who want to read the word of healthcare ecosystem as an entrepreneur in India. Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you.
It was absolute honor to have you with us.
Thank you, Atul. Thanks for having me. And it has been a pleasure to talk to you and share my thoughts and knowledge with you. Thank you.
Conversations like these remind us that healthcare is not just about treating patients. It's about shaping systems, nurturing lives, and building a healthier future. Dr. Kishore Kumar is not just a clinician. He's a rare blend of global neonatologist, a healthcare entrepreneur, and a true system builder. His journey is a journey of persistence, perseverance, patience, passion, and an unwavering pursuit of excellence. Through Gold Pearls, we at Signutra Nutrition Institute aim to bring you closer to such inspiring minds and visionaries who are redefining healthcare through knowledge, compassion, and innovation. If you found this conversation meaningful, do like, share this video, and subscribe to our channel. Until next time, keep learning, keep caring. Thank you so much.